And here we go.
Brakken, you have a black eye.
I do. Well, yellowish purple at this point.
Yeah. Tell me, you getting a skirmish? Skirmish?
A skirmish.
Yeah.
No, just caught a stray while playing basketball.
The irony of it is that you caught is it an elbow you caught playing
It was actually
basketball?
like the inside of a thumb as he turned like a thumb.
So Bracken's new boss gave him a black eye a week before he starts this new little side gig, and that is irony right there.
I signed my contract Tuesday. I've been on under contract for 2 days, and my new boss hit me.
Brakken plays basketball with the principal at the school he's going to be teaching very part-time at, and apparently he just had to assert his dominance before things got rolling.
Yeah, he alpha
That's
dogged
funny.
me.
Did he hug you?
Did he hug me?
Oh, I thought you said he hugged you.
No, he alpha dogged me.
That's very different than giving a hug.
Yeah. Although that might be an alpha dog thing and make me the beta dog right away from the start.
It depends. Time will tell how this plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. I was hoping it stuck around for staff pictures, but it's already fading and getting yellow and gross, so won't be.
Yeah, it's not black or dark enough to deserve sympathy anymore. It's just like, ugh, what happened to your eye?
Yeah, I just look like I had a bender, like with needles.
How would you know?
I watch TV.
All right. Do we want to get caught up on any ongoings, or do we want to strip the Band-Aid off today?
I think let's rip her off today. We can catch up next time. So we have a series to kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said last time we should do part 2 of underrated stuff and then part 2 of overrated stuff, and it feels like a lot. I don't know if they need all that, but I do want to wrap it up with the odds and ends that we didn't get to. And there's like a lot of like swing state votes that are out there where some people just absolutely believe that it's the truth and other people absolutely believe it's not. And we believe, since we're generally not set in stone on anything, that there are situations where a certain thing might be a game changer or a deal breaker, and other times kind of unimportant. And I want to cover all that today. Wrap it up nice and tidy, no loose ends.
So maybe like speaking to a select few people in which what we say may ring very, very true for them, but it may only hit 15%.
Yeah, or vice versa, where like 90% of you don't even have to worry about this. Stop worrying about this. But if you're in this situation, yeah, it actually can help.
And then a few maybe just wrap ups. You mentioned you had a few overrated or underrated things that you didn't get to, and so we can kind of mash it all together. But we can be on both sides of the fence today.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason I moved towards that rather than like let's try to milk each one for a whole nother episode is that I think we're getting to the point where a lot of them are less concrete. But I watched an Instagram video of some running influencers. One of those people was like, how I went from blank to blank in 1 year of running. And they went from like running, what do they say? Like a 250 marathon to a 234 in 1 year, doing this. Like, these are the 3 most important things to me. And it was like, I changed my diet and I stopped, I don't know what it was, keeping devices near my bed at night. And I started doing this for my pre-race fueling. And it's like, well, no, you didn't cut 24 minutes doing that, or 16 minutes, or whatever the running math says it is. That was conducive to a lifestyle change, but you didn't drop a minute per mile off blue light exposure. But it can absolutely be a good thing for you to be exposed to the less blue light at night. So the things that people oftentimes over glamorize because it sells, but is like, I could care less, but it actually can help. But it's not going to cut a minute per mile kind of thing. Like, that's a wishy-washy statement. But I think there's a whole episode waiting of those kind of statements for when does it matter and when does it not.
I don't think blue light's going to make much of a difference.
Unless you struggle for sleep. And the sleep is the thing holding you back from running more mileage or staying healthy and available. Like, then, yeah, that's a difference maker. But no, it's not why this guy went from 250 to 234.
Yeah, it's the EPO.
Well, that's the uncomfortable conversation, right? Is that this is not what this episode's about. But generally, when a hyper successful individual credits a fringe component to being the game changer, it's because there's a bigger, louder game changer that they can't acknowledge. And I think that's
Mhm,
important for people to understand when they're looking at social media content, is that these people can't say like going on testosterone replacement therapy and starting up some anabolic rounds here was an absolute game changer for me. They can't say that, but they can say, I rise and grind and I get up at 6:45 no matter what. And I start my day practicing gratitude and I'm ice bathing and I'm grounding myself and I'm sunning my beehole and all these like fancy
now
new
that I
age.
believe in. Hold, walk it back, Bracken. I just got done doing that.
Well, that's a weird way to cut your lawn, Kirk.
Remember remember how we had talked about me standing naked in alpha flies? What do you think I'm really doing?
I exactly it. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
you can't glamorize things that you would get canceled over. And so oftentimes people do turn to it's like a tale as old as time. Pros glamorize the 1% things because they can't glamorize the things that really got them there, whether it's illegal or not. Like, it's not sexy to say I ran 100 miles a week for a decade and I don't have any
Mhm,
friends and I can't stay in a relationship because running comes first. It's way better to be like, this ice bath, hashtag check out my link, is my game changer. People will
mhm.
respond better to that. So I'm not saying it's always drugs. I'm saying that the thing that made the 10% difference was not the 1% thing most of the time.
Listen, I have no problem with anabolic steroids. I'm going to say it, and that's going to
Okay.
surprise some people. I actually don't have a problem with anabolic steroids in the general population. I think they could be there's side effects that are going to cause problems. I'm getting to a point here. Uh, I had a vegan bodybuilder coworker, let's call it, who rented the gym with me for years. And I really liked the guy. Big dude, vegan through and through, wears the shirts, shouts it from the moontop. Moontop?
Moontop, huh?
Yeah, that's way up there.
Yeah, that supersedes the
I
mountaintop.
was gonna say shouts from the moon or you get it. Anyways, point being, really like the guy, worked really hard and promoted himself as the world's most yoked vegan bodybuilder. To this day, it's all over his stuff, gained a massive following. Yet he's putting 500 cc's of bovine testosterone in his butt cheek every 3 days. That's the thing. So these hemp seed smoothies and this kale crunchies with the cashew cheese and the da 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 and all of the things that was focused on wasn't a lie, but it certainly wasn't the truth. And
Right.
his entire brand is built around being the world's most yoked vegan bodybuilder, and others follow suit, believing they can achieve the same thing when the one thing, the one very important string
Right.
holding those biceps and pecs together is anabolic steroids. And so that always irked me. And you like to think people dope. I
I
stand by
don't
that.
like to.
I feel like you just believe it.
I do. I believe it. A lot
I
of us
don't.
believe things we don't want to believe.
I don't like to believe it, but I lived an example of that along a guy who I really liked, and I think that bleeds into profession, especially if athleticism is your profession, heavily.
Is this episode about to pivot into a drug episode? Because I can do a drug
No,
episode if you want to do a drug episode.
no, I don't think we should.
I think it's due at some point to do a drug episode, and I have an
Well, there's been a
entire
lot of people getting popped lately.
yeah. It's important to talk about at some point, and we can either do it now or we can do it later.
Well, we
But
just button hooked people if that's the
this has been a
case.
good intro if it's going to turn into an impromptu drug episode.
You know what? You're holding on to the steering wheel right now, Bracken.
If you give me an inch, I'm going to take it till the ends of this flat earth, Kirk.
All right. Well, I'll be on the moon top just fine while you're on this flat Earth. So
Well, let's do
you
it
tell
then.
me.
Let's talk about drugs and sports.
Wow, this is not planned. This is how
This is
this
so
goes.
good.
You know what, though? You mentioned something in regards to, well, I didn't want to milk the overrated episode and milk the underrated episode to get more juice out of the squeeze. And I'm like, yeah, you do 600 episodes talking about running and you're going to milk the shit out of anything that you can. And if the mood strikes to talk about drug use, you go with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm always in heat for drug use talk, Kirk, and you know that. And I'm going to start by saying right from the start, I know I have a reputation for assuming everyone's doping, but there is a reason for that. And I'll get into it today with, for the first time in a while, I'm going to give like actual numbers to things
Okay.
because I had some people asking about that. And I think I should just give numbers to it rather than I feel, how can you not believe? Like, usually it's logic based arguments I'll make. This will just be numbers. But I will start by saying the second thing is that I have 3 solid takes on performance enhancing drug use on when I do not care. I do not care if you are not competing in sport. I do not care if it is not negatively impacting your health or those around you. And I do not care if you are not leading people astray because of it. If you are an aging man who wants to take testosterone and you take it in a scientific manner and do it in a way, because we need to understand that everything has not everything, but has a roughly equal and opposite reaction in the body. You add testosterone and other chemicals and hormones in your body are going to fall out of balance. And then you have to take a cocktail of things to keep everything in balance. And I don't think we should try playing God in our system. But if you do it, you have to do it intelligently. And people can do it intelligently. And it seems like live a good, long, happy life, healthy life with it. So if you're doing that and you're not trying to be an athlete, which would then have a competitive advantage, which is not fair, then fine, that's your life. If you are not impacting your health or those around you by it, great, not my world. And if you're not trying to, like Mr. Vegan yoked bodybuilder, if you're not trying to lead people astray and hide it, great, go for it. But people are almost incapable of keeping perspective when they start drug use.
Hmm.
They all say some version of the same thing, which is that I am not me because of this. You couldn't do what I do even with it. They all start to believe their own. It's like when people run a high rocks venue that's insanely fast, they never get done, almost never, and say, that was a crazy venue. I'm definitely 2 minutes slower. It's like, I had a great block of training. I put in the work. This shows what I'm actually capable of on a course that's fair. Like, we grow to believe our own mystique, and then we have to sell our products and claim that our other work is why we're so good. And people just stop believing that that's probably because I started doing drugs. So if
Hmm.
those 3 things aren't checked, any one of the 3, I don't care. Do your thing. But this is a running podcast. Most of the people here compete in some capacity or hawk their wares doing something with influencing. So I think that crowd, yeah, it is cheating.
Question for you, and you may not have the answer. I don't have the answer. So I am pro testosterone replacement therapy for those who are clinically low.
Okay.
Okay. I can get on board with that. I'm on board for estrogen therapy for women who are clinically low, adrenal, thyroid in particular. Again, I am on board for those things, which you could argue are all performance enhancers in some regard in a clinical setting, a clinically low setting. Now, you who has high testosterone naturally,
Mhm.
you are over the suggested or typical range for an adult male,
Mhm.
and especially of your age, right?
Now, I haven't been tested in probably 4 years now, so I don't know where it resides currently.
Okay, so like maybe ideal range might be 300 to 900, let's
3 to
just say.
9 is a safe range to
Okay.
say.
And you're at 1100, let's say. So you are over the speed limit.
Yeah.
Okay.
4
I'm on
years
the
ago it was
low.
1301.
Okay, and I'm on the lower end, and I don't know. I got a follow up appointment in about a month to get it checked again. But nonetheless, I guess this is really a tangential part of this conversation, but I do feel it's relevant, especially for sectors of our listening audience. Is so if I were to take supplemental testosterone prescribed to me by a physician, and I get up to 700 or 900, am I now cheating? And would that be considered pop by like WADA if Grant
Mhm.
Fisher is on testosterone therapy to get to the same level Cole Hawker's at naturally? Is that cheating?
Yeah.
By WADA's
According
definition, it is,
by
correct?
Watta's, yeah, exogenous testosterone is cheating.
In
Uh,
any form, correct?
yeah.
Where do you lie? Where do you lie with that? I mean, I get it. There has to be rules in place. It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very broad and then it can get narrower, but I believe that broad picture here, the range is so crazy broad that any male outside of probably me can walk into a doctor's office and be diagnosed as low because the range is so big. And then if you could just say, hey, I used to be here and now I'm down here. If you go to the right doctor and you just describe the symptoms, they can fudge the numbers and say you really are outside of what a healthy normal range would be. And I think we should start implementing a low dose here round of it and see if quality of
Mhm.
life improves. Like you can just say the right things at in the doctor's office and you will be approved most likely. I think like 75% of guys or something get approved first round.
You
So
know,
the
to butt
range
in
is
real
huge.
to butt in real quick, I have a client I'm working with in the gym, Mark, and Mark has been a good client of mine for a while. Really like Mark. Was at his wedding last summer, and Mark's doctor um, made him come in 3 times, fasted in the morning to get 3 separate lab results, 2 weeks apart, to ensure all three were below. He was below 200 in all three before he was comfortable prescribing Mark testosterone replacement therapy, which I found very thorough. They made him test 3 times to confirm nothing was an outlier and then give it to him. And I don't think that's typical protocol, but I
That's
just had heard that
great
recently.
doctoring.
Correct.
And adjacent to that, part of my issue with all of this is that it is so easy for guys to get testosterone prescribed, and it's very difficult for women to get anything perimenopause, menopause related, or
Mm,
especially blood iron related. It is so difficult to get approved for it, get through the hoops, and find insurance coverage for it. And the precipitous drop off when women get below a certain blood, like a anything that to do with low iron, as soon as you get below a certain number, the drop off is so crazy in terms of quality of life. And
yep.
it's like almost guaranteed to happen for every woman going through perimenopause that it could be so easily fixed. But men have such a crazy, easy access to, hey, let's get your testosterone up. Like they're often suggested by their doctor before they even bring anything up. Whereas women will go to their doctor and say, I need, like, here's what I'm experiencing. I've done my research already. And they're like, well, we'll have to get you in to see someone who's a specialist in this first. And then from there,
Yeah.
we're going to go through hoops. It's just like the one that's performance enhancing is easier to get than the one that's life improving.
Although I will say, and maybe we're just wasting our breath here, even going down this road, but um, negligible benefits to higher testosterone in the endurance space. If we're real talking, it is the lowest potential influencer on endurance performance. There's a lot of other things that would make a much bigger impact. So I don't even know if it's worth talking about.
Well, I think it is worth talking about just from a what does it do perspective, because if you look at like the Tour de France or things like that where people utilize it, it's extremely beneficial for being able to go moderately hard to hard day after day after day and recover and regenerate.
Recovery time, correct.
And that's really big. But the interesting thing is that I have the highest testosterone level of any person I know of naturally. And I've
That's a
said this
flex.
before, but the last time I got tested was by a different lab and I didn't have any past results with them. And the first correspondence back was, here are your tests. Also, you need to go to your doctor and tell them to stop prescribing your exogenous testosterone
Mhm.
prescription. I was like, I don't. He's like, well, if that's true, then we need to get you in to check for a tumor because this is not natural. And I had to show him a decade of panels that show that I've had this level since I've first got tested when Spartan had a contract with I think an Inside Tracker blood testing, and B, none of the the compensatory biomarkers that would be out of whack if you took it were ever present. So it
Mm.
took like a month of emails to convince a lab I wasn't taking testosterone. So
You ever
my
test your pituitary gland function because of that?
never, because they're like, if there is an issue, you would have had it for 13 years at this point and it would have
Mm.
manifested.
Okay. They usually go right to the pituitary in that situation. I was
So
curious.
anyways, we didn't have to. But point is, I have the highest testosterone of anyone I know. And I am on the low end of everyone I know in terms of recovery and regeneration between efforts. I do not
Hmm.
race well back to back days. I end up having to take, like, I've always struggled to do 3 quality workouts in a week. I put on muscle very quickly. I respond very quickly to training, but I do not recover very quickly between anything. And that would be one of the biggest things you would ask for. So it's just interesting to see that even
Mm,
naturally occurring high doesn't give me all the benefits you'd wanted. But when you introduce anyone to a higher level, then you start getting that. So,
mm.
like me dropping from 1300 to 1100 and you going from, let's say, 500 to 700, you would have a huge improvement and I would have a huge reduction and I would still be almost double your level.
Right.
So it's all very, very personal and it's very case by case and it's hard to ever prove, but recovery and regeneration would always be the big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to open that box. I
No,
think we
it's
can
worth
close it
talking
if we
about
want to.
because it's the
So,
most common among non-athletes, I think.
yeah, I think it's very accessible. But I think this is going to be where you probably do a bit more talking than I do because I think you're more curious than I am in this regard, so you
Yeah,
probably look for it more than I do. I just see the front page posts, we'll call it, on Instagram with people getting busted. I mean, we've had some really big names, and
very.
these really big names recently. I mean, the women's world record holder in the marathon gone. We had who's the other woman um, recently? Oh my goodness. I don't know. You just saw Parvesh Khan, who was a collegian, but really came out of nowhere, became a phenom, and then busted, gone. Had the guy from Spain, what's his kid, Mohammed Katir,
Mhm.
gone.
An
Uh,
Ethiopian camp had testing
Holy
show
Theo,
up
yes,
and people jumped fences and ran away. The
yes,
Indian, what was it? The Indian National Track and Field Championships. I don't remember if it was their national championships or if it was their U20 championships. They had testers show up for the finals. And at the steeplechase final, there were something like, I don't know, let's say 16 people qualified. Only two showed up to the final because testers were waiting.
that's where Parvesh is from, right?
Yeah,
He's
he's from
Indian.
India. Anyway,
Okay,
so we
yeah,
have all these crazy stories of it starting to have more of a presence, and you're seeing like turn on the lights and people scatter type behavior. So
yeah.
it's at the high end, it's there, but people often talk that it's not there at the middle end or the low end or in a new sport like Spartan. That was always a thing. It's a new sport. How could we possibly already be doping? Or High Rocks? You really think they've started doping just to make $5,000 at a major in High Rocks or things? And
Yep.
yeah, well, it's one of those things. Kirk, you're a fisherman. You're a hunter. One of the things I learned about water is that once you learn how to look into it and through it rather just at it, you see fish everywhere.
Hmm.
And it's crazy. And I learned that when I started bow fishing. In high school and college, I bow fished kind of a lot, actually. One semester in college, I went out like 5 mornings per week for like
Huh.
9 weeks straight. I was real into it. And these were rivers and streams that I was used to. TLC. And I started looking into it for the first time through it. You learn how to look through the
Mhm.
glare, and they're just massive fish sitting there. But
You
they'd
got to
been there the
account for
whole
the
time.
refraction of the light, though. You got to account for
You
that.
got to account for it. But they're there. You just don't see things until you start looking for them in life. But once you start looking for things in life, you see these fish everywhere. And that's how doping was for me. I never looked for it. But one of my formative experiences in sport was the summer of the home run chase with Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa. And all
No,
summer long, playing out in the neighborhood, and every kid's parent had their radio on. And as soon as one of those two came up to bat, the call would go out and we'd all sprint to the closest garage and listen to their at bats. And that was like this crazy summer. And then they all get popped eventually. And that was like the start of it for me. And
mhm.
then I went to Whitewater, a Division III college, and just it was rife with it. The
With who? What?
baseball locker room,
Oh,
the
okay.
football locker room was crazy. I've said this on here before, but a buddy of mine that I played rec sports with there tried out as a walk-on punter and made it like 2 or 3 days before his first teammate offered him anything. As a walk-on punter, like it was not even behind closed doors; it was just open in the locker room.
Hmm.
So that piqued my interest. I ended up writing my final paper as a college student on the prevalence of doping in sports. And from that point on, it's just been something I'm super interested by it and because I'm looking for it, like I see it everywhere.
It's very interesting. I didn't know you wrote your what you'll call it your dissertation. We'll call
My,
it.
my teaching thesis was on
Okay.
doping in sports because
You know what
they
I
didn't have
thought?
guidelines.
I am gonna upset some people by bringing this next thing up. So I'm probably gonna pay for this one, but I even thought about like the recently, and I'm gonna bring up somebody, Nikki Hiltz.
Mhm.
Okay, they recently had top surgery, for example, which
Breast
removes the
removal surgery.
breast removal surgery, right? And they can live their truth, and I'm very happy for them. And I like Nikki Hiltz a lot. In fact, I love watching them race, etc. But then you have to think like, okay, well, where does that fall like in weight reduction if you nix a couple of pounds? Where those are legal things to be done, right? You can't stop them from doing that nor assign that to have any sort of performance enhancer inherently.
Mhm.
But I have a feeling there's versions of that also that happen. You could call super shoes that, or you could call track surfaces that, or you could call, and then you start to wonder about the fringe. Like I thought good for them. And then I thought, well, that also makes them a little bit lighter. Is that
Right.
an advantage? Did that thought cross your mind?
Kinda. I mean, it's these gray area things that are then it becomes there's a precedent set and then WADA investigates. Like that's what's happening with peptides right now. GLP-1s,
Right. Right.
massive, massive in this world right now. Like maybe the biggest wave of medical acceptance of like
Mm-hmm.
real early on. Like this went out as fast as the COVID vaccines went out. And yet it was universally accepted rather than
Mm-hmm.
universally kind of despised, or at least 50-50. People just clamped onto this. And we don't have long-term studies on it yet. But right now, WADA has added GLP-1 to its like investigation list
Oh, they
where
have. Okay.
it's not illegal, but we are watching it this year and studying and doing our due diligence, and it may get added as soon as we come to a conclusion. So
The
it's, that's what happens with new things that pop up.
right authorities will have to figure out if it
Right.
needs to be addressed or not. And I know Nikki's case is very rare, right? It's not going to be. I doubt it's going to be.
No.
I don't know, but it also made me think. Remember an interview with Austin Smeek? I forget. Is that how he said his last name? Who was the Paralympic champion
Hmm.
in the wheelchair, and he would say, yeah, I was told not to even use my walker or my crutches for months before the Olympics because I could shrink my legs down by 5 pounds.
Right.
And that's 5 less pounds I got to carry around I got to wheel around when I go compete. And I thought it was just such a fascinating, and that, of course, that's weight loss. And
Right.
I guess you can't really put that under a microscope, but you get what I'm getting at is with like, okay, so what about the things that aren't precedented? Just because you're not injecting something in your body
Right.
or taking something orally, are there other ways that people are, I don't know, could they make bicarb eventually like
That's
illegal?
being studied right now. Yeah.
Correct. That could be the next thing on the chopping block. And again, I know I'm flirting with a really sensitive line here, but like it's worth discussing.
It is. And honestly, Nikki's situation didn't bother me whatsoever simply because women have been getting breast reduction surgery since
100%.
the dawn of exercise. Like as
That's
soon as
fair.
there was lower back problem because of it, people had breast reduction and that's the precedent I look to, and so I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, we
But
don't need to spend more time on it, and I have no issue with it whatsoever. I just thought from like a performance benefits standpoint,
yeah.
crossed my mind. That's all. All right, so let's get down to injectables, Bracken.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to start with a few numbers here. All right. So right now currently self-reported 14% of 40 plus are on TRT.
Okay.
Okay. So if you just looked at the Venn diagram of 40 plus men and those who are interested in competing, it's not a circle. It's not one circle, but those things are very, very overlapped. So if 14%, this is just self-reported. This is not everyone. So you understand that it's going to be higher. But if 14% of men 40 plus are on testosterone replacement therapy, a high percent of that population are the ones at your local Hyroxes and Decafits and marathons and 5Ks because they're
Mm-hmm.
the people that already care about this kind of thing. Your CrossFit competitions, your lifting competitions. So if just the sample size was equal across the board, you're guaranteed that a minimum of 14% of your competitors at 40 plus are on testosterone replacement therapy already. And that's only if there's not a higher percentage in sport than out of sport just for regular life happiness.
And assuming the self-reporting is accurate.
And it's always low.
Right.
Because who's going to claim it that isn't doing it?
Right.
So again,
So you're saying in our subject study of athletes, it's more likely to be higher because one, maybe they do have low or testosterone than they like, and two, it most definitely is some sort of performance enhancer and it's legally prescribed.
Yeah. Yeah, legally prescribed, not legal in sports, but legally prescribed. Yeah, and
Correct.
this is just the obtained through a physician.
Okay.
14% of 40 plus have legally obtained it through a physician. Again, that's not the same percentage that you'd find in sport. It will always be higher because sport is about performance. So a high percent of those 14% are already going to be competing. So that's what part of why you look around. I was down at High Rocks Worlds this year, Kirk. The 40 to 50 age group
So jacked.
oftentimes has a lower body percent than the 30 to 40. Outrageous.
So what do you, gosh, I guess we're just going to be flirting with lines here today.
Yeah.
So do you feel like a 45 to 50-year-old male whose testosterone's been going down, they've seen their body mass go down and their muscle body comp go down, and they are competing, but they also want to feel better, we'll call it, and they're on the low range of normal. So you're saying, like, if you want to compete, there's no place for that whatsoever.
Now we're back to morals and logic and feelings. My take is no, you can't, because you can't undo it. You change your mind later, you change your feelings on it later. It doesn't undo what's already been done. You already spent 3 years into your decline, not declining.
I just try. So I'm not taking anything. I don't plan to be on anything. I have a lot of people in my circle who are supplementing. A lot of them that I know, men in their 40s. You're nailing it. Exactly. People that I train at the gym, friends of mine, people I listen to on podcasts openly talk about it in the outdoor space. And they're all in that like 40 to 45 range. And I'm just thinking like if somebody, like somebody's not going to not do it if they really think it's going to enhance their life and how they feel, but they're not going to not show up and compete in something. But are they directly taking it as a performance enhancer? Is it a nice excuse to be able to, right? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying I could see how a lot of people in that age range in that sector who are already hyper aware of their physical attributes and performance could fall, I'm not going to say victim or trap, but fall susceptible to being like, you know what? Sure. Prescribe it to me.
Yeah, and now it's mainstream. And realistically, the logic side to it says, like, we've talked about what are the anti-aging things? Like weightlifting is anti-aging, cold water swimming is anti-skin aging, things like that. If you're willing to do all those things, this just falls underneath that. It's quality of life, whatever. The difference is that those are all activities you can do. It creates a positive only interaction in your body. Whereas when you take exogenous sources, things that are not naturally occurring in the body, and then you put them into the body, even though testosterone it's created artificially and then brought in an exogenous source, that has a negative compensatory reaction from your body. And so that's kind of where I draw the line, an activity that will spike testosterone versus taking testosterone. Now, some people will have there is no line there. Like the benefit is the benefit. Who cares where it comes from? And I'm not judging that. I'm just saying if rules exist in sport, I stand on the side of the rule, even if the rule's nonsensical, like let's say marijuana usage.
Sure.
Like this country has victimized marijuana far more than alcohol, even though pretty much every study showing that alcohol is worse for the human body than marijuana, and neither are performance enhancing. Like that would be an example. I'm not like preaching on the pulpit for that, but I don't agree with the way they treat alcohol versus marijuana in sport doping culture, but I would still follow it because that's the pre-existing rule.
Yeah.
So I always err on the side of sport trumps logic or anything. I think I've lived my life in an illogical way because sport has been above a lot of things, but that again, that's a stance, not a number.
Well, yeah, it's been our life. I mean, we're still pursuing performance at a very high level. These things are thought about, talked about. And if you were to go compete and train and you're in the 40 to 45 category next time around, and the guy that was in front of you has been on something, whether it's for medical reasons or just because he wants an edge,
Yeah,
that is going to sit very poorly with you.
for sure.
But testing doesn't bleed down to any sort of level in what we do at this
Yeah.
point. So, okay, do you want to keep talking about testosterone, or do you want to get into some other
We can
stuff?
get into other stuff. So there's a study done by a governing body that estimated, now this is a very wide range, but between self-reporting and positive tests on drug panels, they estimated between 14 and 39% of athletes across sports are using something that's prohibited. So that's a really wide range. And what do you do with that? I think all you do is you look at the minimum. They once again say that number 14. They think 14% of athletes at the national and pro level are cheating. That's the low end of their range.
National and pro level across all,
All
like, many
sports,
different
all
sport
national
domains.
sports. Yeah,
What would work? Like, what would, like, what you do or I do? We would not be included in that
correct.
top sector. Correct. These are
This was
like
based off of athletes who qualify for
semi-pro.
an Olympic training center.
Okay. Hmm. And there's no more specifics with that study.
There
For
are, but
example, Golden Trail Series was like, you know what? Ibuprofen in these multi-stage races, not allowed. If you test positive for ibuprofen, you're booted. We believe it's a performance enhancer. And so now ibuprofen cannot be taken in the Golden Trail Series races.
right.
I assume it's tested. And like could that be an example?
In this study, no, I believe this
Or
was an Australian study of national Australian sports.
okay, or like what's that injection that you give to, let's say, a football player? Like he's got a game and he's in pain and they give him the injection. They have to be in severe pain, but they'll give it to him anyway so they can literally go bang
Mhm.
on each other for what's that? You know what I'm talking about? It's like a miracle drug,
I'm blanking on the
for
name right
example.
now,
You know
but
what I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about, though? That's pretty rampant in the NFL, I believe, or at
yeah.
least was. Like, where do those things fall where it's legal in blurred line situations? I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
that wouldn't be legal by WADA, but WADA doesn't govern the NFL.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
I think this is by WADA guidelines. So then there was a study that came out during, and then it was longitudinal to end after COVID. But this is kind of a crazy one. Since COVID, a 120% increase for 24 and under TRT usage. 120% increase in taking testosterone replacement therapy in the 24 and under crowd. 86% increase from 25 to 34. And that includes women in that study. That is a genderless study. That is all human beings, self-reported.
Hmm.
So since COVID, there has been a marked increase in TRT usage, and it's somewhere between 86 and 120% increase between the 24 and 34 age bracket, with women included in the study.
That one's tough to make sense of.
Well, it's showing that either one of two things: the women are bringing the numbers down and it's way higher, or, and this is the actual reality, the amount of women taking that has also gone up.
Hmm.
Since testosterone has a magnified effect in the female body.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
just
very
again, in
interesting.
terms of prevalence, it's
Hmm.
prevalent and it's only increasing.
Um, can you say, let's talk the endurance space
Yeah.
exclusively. Like, for example, if you're going to pump a bunch of testosterone in your body, male or female, and that could be associated with muscle gain, and that could be counterproductive in the endurance space, depending on what your homeostasis size is. That you could almost call it counterproductive to some point. If you jack me up with testosterone and put me in the weight room, I will be a worse runner without question. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think we're spending a lot of time talking about one of the more irrelevant cheats to running well
I would agree to an extent. I would
on the
also say,
professional level. On the professional
well, I would
level,
say that most of those people aren't getting in the weight room the way you would. Like
right,
doing
right.
banded Bulgarian split squats are not gonna, you're not gonna get jacked. So I think they're only getting the recovery and they're not getting the
Oh,
downside.
clamshells will put on 10, 20 pounds easy in those hips, man.
But I would
Yeah.
say that they can only in these studies track things that are prescribable. So they're not going to do a self-reporting of EPO usage because who's going to self-report? Because
Yeah.
it's illegal to even obtain for like 99% of the world.
So what are these pros getting popped for?
The vast majority of the time, the pros are popped for masking agents, for diuretics, or for like oftentimes you will see men get popped for estrogen.
To balance or
Like
counter.
John Jones famously got popped for estrogen. He had like a 8 pictograms or something crazy small for anabolic agents at one point, but it was estrogen that he got popped for. And it's because they're taking a hopefully doctor prescribed cocktail that includes estrogen to balance out the crazy hormonal shifts in their body due to all the testosterone and anabolic agents you take in. So they're like, you take the big thing to give you the boost, and then the medium thing to counteract the boost, and then the small thing to counteract the counteracting agent. And then finally you take a masking agent when you get close to testing to try to flush your system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people get popped for.
Well, yeah. Also, if your testosterone levels are higher, your estrogen levels typically go with it as well, even as just a byproduct of testosterone. Your estrogen levels are probably higher than mine as well, just because of your testosterone. I know that's why you're both manly and feminine, Brakken.
That's right.
Soft features. But I'm saying, like, guys like Power Veg. Why am I forgetting the women former world record marathon holder? Who is that? I mean, I should know it at the tip of my tongue, but anyway, she in Chicago. Chibet. They're not getting popped in that way. They're getting popped for some sort of red blood cell oxygen transport system enhancer, whether it be EPO or it's a version of blood doping. I would like to know what those athletes are getting popped for. And maybe it is a secondary test that they're getting popped for that indicates what the primary doping agent was.
Yeah.
But
generally
I
you
don't
get
know what
caught
that
for EPO or you get caught for a masking agent. And that's
so
what's
EPO
happening.
or masking agent to the EPO.
Correct.
Erythropoietin. And I forget how it even works.
It's like going to altitude. Red blood cell count gets jacked way up.
I'm going to do a quick search.
Your hematocrit numbers rise drastically, and that's what it is. I don't know if you've ever read any of the books about the training camp with Lance and Tyler and all them, but they're fascinating. These guys walked around obsessed with their hematocrit numbers.
Right. Okay, it says, yeah,
which is
EPO,
a blood score, essentially.
EPO is a hormone naturally produced by the kidneys that signals the bone marrow to produce red blood cells. It's also very helpful to prevent anemia, apparently. It says erythropoietin stimulating agent is a man-made version of the naturally occurring hormone EPO that stimulates the production of red blood cells in the bone marrow. So basically it's telling her, and that's where red blood cells are made, in the bone marrow, which I think isn't inherent knowledge for a lot of people.
Right.
So it says, hey, make these. And what do red blood cells do? Red blood cells are absolutely our oxygen transport system. The more red blood cells, the more oxygen available to your working muscles, heart, and lungs, and thus things become effortless by comparative. You are drowning in oxygen, as they love to say when NAU is out on the track.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as someone who has lived at sea level and lived at altitude, there is a noticeable difference in racing feeling and the associated heart rate and energy cost when I was an altitude liver versus a non-altitude liver. The very first time I came down from altitude after an extended several month stay, my first run down, I thought, oh, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
It felt like I could just tempo at easy effort. Racing was still
100%.
difficult. In fact, sometimes the first mile of a race hurt more, but there's a difference, and there was always more to push into. You still hurt. And that's part of why drug users downplay its benefit, because it's still, racing was every bit as painful. It's just that if you were able to lean into it, you could keep doing it. And the cyclists talk about that. The guys, they used to talk about these famous stories of guys who would wear their molars down in a race from gritting their teeth so hard through the pain. Like, it didn't take the pain away. If you were tough enough to keep your foot on the throttle, you would keep going rather than crumbling. That's where a lot of these things make the difference. And so again, it's hard for these people to say, oh, it's because of the drugs, because they were in it hurting so bad and they toughed through it.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely tell you that there's a benefit of having a higher red blood cell count.
And I mean, really, the two things, I mean, they're one of the same in a different vein would be blood doping, which is basically taking a bag of blood out of your body, freezing it,
Spinning it, getting the red
spinning
blood
it.
cells out.
Sure. Your blood will naturally replenish itself within a week or time period or so. And then before a race, you get your own blood, your red blood cells re-injected into your system. And suddenly now you have however more would be millions of red blood cells. I don't know the numbers on them, I'm assuming, in your system. And EPO would literally just create more of a steady state of that acute act, which would be blood doping. That's fairly accurate to say, right?
Yeah,
So one in the same, one involves a drug and one involves taking your blood out and then putting it back in, and you have
right.
more blood volume. They say the risk with that is thickened blood, so increased risk of heart strain or any sort of like vascular rupture or
Yeah.
something like that, because you're literally pushing more volume through your system,
Yeah,
which
people
can
would get
be
sludgy
tricky.
blood back in the day, like in the 80s when they're in 90s when they're first doing this stuff. People would have heart attacks and die on airplanes because they're up at a different altitude level, and
Mhm.
it's a
Dangerous.
dangerous
It can
thing.
be, I mean, this has to be so, if they're doing it, has to be so measured and calculated. It's not like Chibette is sitting at home being like, well, this looks like about the right amount of blood to put in my arm. She's not doing that. She's literally being administered to the milliliter
By
of what
doctor.
the heck is going in and out by doctor behind closed doors with help, typically with help from the same doctors or the same coach,
Mhm.
then referring to their guy or girl who helps people legally cheat. It's something that we won't know the shadows of, but it exists across all sports.
Yeah. And so to be cheating at that level takes either a training group that you're with an agent or a coach who has a doctor and they all do this together, or you have to be pretty solitary. Because it's hard to hide bags of bloods in your fridge, or it's hard to hide syringes. It's like you live with someone long enough and you know their secrets, right? And there were stories in OCR of people uncovering a duffel bag of syringes and uh, pre-
Ooh, do tell.
prescription medicine with the
Let's name
label
names.
pulled off. I'm not going to say names here.
Ryan Woods.
no, no, he got popped for DHEA.
DHA, yeah.
But the fact is, like those kind of higher level things have to either be part of a group or they have to be real solitary. Things like testosterone, things like right now the big thing I already said GLP-1, but peptides of all nature are becoming very in vogue, especially in Europe and the US. I was just talking to an athlete that I work with who his gym is like all about it. You know, it's a functional fitness, hybrid, CrossFit gym, and they push it. And they have a clinic they work with, and there's like peptides, peptides, peptides. Peptides are the current miracle cure. And it's like, yeah, yeah, they can be. And they're also a vast majority of them illegal. And people are just the CrossFitters at their gym do it. The coaches are promoting it, and it's not even seen as a big deal. And then you just get on board and you use it and you're not even sure if it's really legal or not, but it's beneficial. GLP-1 is a peptide. They are anabolic in nature peptides, and there are those that aren't. And all peptides that are anabolic in nature are banned by WADA. The ones that aren't
Mhm.
anabolic in nature, like a GLP-1, are being studied by WADA. But peptides are like a massive medical movement right now. Between 12 and 14% of all adults in the United States have admitted to using GLP-1 currently. And that's just, again, self-reported from a doctor currently using GLP-1s.
Yeah, I'm not. I have a different subject study in the gym, which is where I leave usually from these podcast recordings to go work with people in person. Um, I want to say 25% of my clients are on
Mhm. And
a
it's rising
prescription
by the
at this
month.
point. The type of person who may hire a trainer and feel like they need to lose weight, and also that's part of their weight loss prescription,
Mhm.
will be on a GLP-1, and I'm gonna say a quarter. I'm gonna say a quarter of the people I work with in the gym. I can think of a handful. It's working. I'll tell you what, it comes at a cost. I mean, a couple of these women, and I have men on it too, but a couple of these women, I mean, I can't so much as have them do anything that raise their heart rate and their head's in the toilet and they got to puke because their GI system is so shut off that they can't so much as eat uh, yogurt and then go work out within 3 hours because their system is completely blocked. And so we have a joke. There's a puke spot behind my truck for one woman because I can have her do bench press and she feels sick.
Yeah.
And this has been ongoing forever. She's on the highest dose. Of course, there's like a fine line. Well, no wonder you're losing weight. I mean, you can't so much as go up the stairs without feeling nauseous. It's a tough deal. And not everybody feels that way, but I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
I certainly don't know. I have not seen the perform enhancing benefits from my clients in the gym.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I digress.
Well, from a moderate to high dose of GLP-1, you're going to get crazy, crazy weight loss and you're going to get crazy side effects. And
Right.
from microdosing, which is generally like, if I were a pro athlete and I were cheating, everything I did would be microdosing. It minimizes the body swings. It minimizes the risk of getting caught, and you can really tailor and control to your needs. GLP-1s are being used by endurance athletes because they can get hyper lean. And if they microdose it, their bodies are already so finely tuned that they respond high to it, but they don't have to have big compensatory swings internally because of it. But again, that just goes back to what we said earlier. The Venn diagram of people self-reporting use and those in a gym setting is almost going to be close to a circle, right? So if they say 12 to 14% have self-reported use, and you are saying at least 25% of the people you see are, well, yeah, there's an overlap of that demographic. And that's why our sports are always higher percentage than just the everyday population stats say they should be.
I think you create a nice nest in a room and you shroom up and you sit there and you see clearly. Back to the old Anthony Kunkel interview.
There you go.
No, I don't recommend that. All right. Well, this is it's fascinating for me to think about because I spend very little of my time and brain power like pondering these things. If I'm being honest with you, I don't really, even though it's my career and I'm actually dealing with a lot of this stuff now that we're talking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I know these 10 people on TRT and I know these 10 people on weight loss, injections. And, but I spend very little time thinking about it. And so it's just interesting to bring it all up. And then you start to realize, like, even on a Gen Pop scale, where these things aren't, if these Gen Pop scale people chose to be athletes or whatnot, where do the lines get blurred and crossed? And it's just interesting, very interesting.
Well, there's this fallacy, and I brought this up on here probably 10 times throughout the years, where we are hyper aware of the things that are in our scope of expertise, and we don't transfer that logic to things outside of ours. And the example of that is you go to read the New York Times, let's say, and you page through and you read the economic section, the finance section, and you read these opinion pieces there and you take it at face value, then you move on. And then you read the sports, you take it at face value, you move on. And then you get to technology and you are in IT and you read something, you're like, well, that's an error. And this person clearly did like cursory research, talked to a few people who are biased, and then wrote this. And you're like, there are a lot of issues with this article here, and I know better than that. And then you move on to the next page on let's say health, and it's something about diet and nutrition, and you take it at face value and you keep moving on. We forget that the holes we see and the trends we see in our circle that we know very well exist in every other circle of life. And so if you look around and you say, I know these guys on anabolic agents, and I know these people on GLP-1s, and I know all these people on TRT, but like, that's just my gym circle. What are the odds that's also happening? And like, yeah, the odds are probably the same that it's happening at a CrossFit competition. And I'm not saying you are saying that, but we forget that everything is relative. Like, if you have a circle and you know the guys at your gym or the women in your class are doing these things, like, that's the same experience to some extent, plus or minus a few percentage, across every endeavor. And so when I looked at college football, the university I was at had a super high percentage of athletes using testosterone and anabolic steroids, super high. And that was a D3 university. And the baseball team had a moderately high level. Now, is there a chance that UW-Whitewater was an outlier? And we were famous for it, or infamous for it.
Well, you also had one of the top D3 programs in the country, if not the top.
Right. But then I also know that my dad, who was a D1 quarterback, he estimated 50% of the linemen that he ever played with used some sort of anabolic agent. So was that school an outlier? Or is it that every football program I personally know about is at 50%? and probably the rest are plus minus 10% from there as well at the high level. And then I look at Spartan racing when back in the day when we were all traveling together, I knew for a fact that 2 of the top 10 men had self-admitted to at some point have been taking things that were illegal. And a third had accidentally admitted and then claimed he didn't, but it was inadvertent, but had listed on his own website at one point a testosterone and producing and boosting agent he was taking. So 3 of the top 10 men I had personal knowledge were, and 2 of the top 10 women I had secondary knowledge of. So suddenly 5 out of 20. And I'm looking around like this was no different than what I saw at the college level and that my dad saw at the college and then in the Chicago Bears and San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys camp and then playing up in the CFL in Canada. And it's like, if all these shared circles have the same exact story, why would I think that really any other story is different?
And I think there's a lot of not a lot, but there are other versions of, I was talking about maybe the GLP-1 or maybe weight reduction surgery, we could call it. What if somebody was an awesome athlete, but they just carried weight and they got liposuction and lost 15% of their body mass and then suddenly were a world champion?
Mm-hmm.
Like there could be interesting examples where like
Yeah.
blurred lines, right? The top surgery was just an example, but you could go down the line.
Yeah.
And even like, why did Alberto Salazar's athletes all have asthma and take an inhaled corticosteroid? Because
Mm-hmm.
it increased lung volume by 5%. That's just, I'm throwing
And
that out
thyroid
there.
medication.
And thyroid for people who didn't have asthma, but they could take their inhaled corticosteroid twice a day, and it would ensure that their lungs and their alveoli and their bronchial tubes stayed nice and open and almost expanded, because a steroid will do that, reduce inflammation, increase accessibility. And there's versions of that, and that would be considered legal. But if you legally don't have asthma and are prescribed asthma medication, I think there's like micro examples, and that being one of them, that could
Mm-hmm.
go across the board where there's like gray area stuff that even you and I could do at home. I used to be on a daily inhaler. I'm not anymore. It's been a decade, but like, could that have been considered a performance enhancer? Yeah. My daily corticosteroid
Yeah.
inhaler.
Yeah, and thyroid medication has been an endurance thing for decades because it's easy to get. You just have to find a doctor who's willing to say, "Yeah, your life could be improved by this." I could see how these numbers would say you have a bit of a deficiency with your thyroid.
Yeah.
Thyroid malfunctioning is really, really easy to diagnose or very hard to pinpoint. So a lot of people have it for a reason. And so, yeah, a lot of people just do these kind of things when they care, and they do care. One
Mm.
last little like example of how all these different circles intertwine. Something like 54% of people in the fashion industry in general admit to drug use, and it's like double that. Well, it can't be double 54, but it's like 78 or 80% in the fitness fashion industry self-report drug use. Well, just like looking at High Rocks alone, we have 2 or 3 men and women who make Elite 15 or worlds each year who come from that world. Now, I'm not calling them out specifically, but if over 50% of their world self reports and we have a high prevalence of fashion models in our sport, like that's another one that comes in. So we have CrossFitters, which have high use. We have powerlifters, which have high use. We have fashion, fitness, what would you call physique models and fitness models that has a super high use. We have cyclists, runners, soccer players, swimmers, all sports with an incredibly high use rate. And so you don't need to be an existing sport to have the problem in your sport, because your new sport is created from athletes of existing sports with already a huge problem. Or maybe you don't see it as a problem, but an occurrence.
So we're coming to an end here,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm asking myself two questions that we're just not going to be able to answer today. And actually, we're the ones who are doing this episode, but I'm trying to figure out like, what's the point of this episode? Meaning, like, are we just spewing opinion and what exists, and just so you know, this is what we think is going on, and so do with it what you will? Or are we trying to come up with solutions?
There's no solution because it's only each individual's choice. My hope is that people would stop and think before they start anything into their body.
Yeah.
Think long term, think about the ethics of sport, and just realize that you're not fooling anyone. Like you're
Hmm.
not. when you're 50 with 2% body fat and shredded and more vascular than you were at 40, like there's not a natural path there. There's not. Metabolism slows down. And if yours is increasing, there is not a natural path. Like we understand that there's just no fooling it. But also, if you're in the sport, I don't want this to be depressing. I want this to be a badge of honor. Like you can't control anyone but yourself. But every single person you beat has a chance that they were cheating. And every single person you beat is a notch on your belt. And you have to look at it that way. Sport is not getting cleaner. And so if you can be that person on the island alone by yourself, taking down, like this is the narrative you build up in your mind. It can't be, oh, I'm not even going to try because everyone's cheating. It's, I'm going to take it to every single one of these people and they're going to know that someone clean beat them.
That's an interesting take. I think we did do it like a doping episode years ago, didn't we? We let ourselves talk about it one time. I think we did. Because I remember chatting about the Alberto Salazar inhaler situation. But, well, I guess we can leave you guys with that. I believe in humanity. I have a lot of faith in you athletes listening that doing it the right way, just like me and Brakken are.
Well, my closing statement is be critical thinkers when you listen to people online.
Sure.
If someone has this crazy improvement and they're trying to sell you something that seems like a 1 to 2% issue, like a diet thing, like mobility, like a certain type of plyometric, just know that there's a very high chance that it's not that. So like if something's too good to seem true, it generally, or seems too good to be true, it generally is, especially with athletics, because we know by this point what the human archetype is. And you don't see crazy increases from the 1% things.
We're going to get a couple of messages on the Running Public account after this one, and guess who gets to read those, Brakken?
You know what? You can forward those to me. I'm happy to respond to those.
I love it when like we have an episode, maybe it's about training revelations, and then your athletes are like, oh, like creating more work for you, being like, I want to do that now. Can you rejig my plan?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we do an episode that creates more work for us, I have a feeling on the messages and opinion standpoint, we're just created some more work for us.
Yeah. Yeah, because we know if this holds true, 14 to 39% of our audience is taking something.
Yeah, there's people we're talking about right now that are, I think a lot of men in the sector you spoke of. And I'm still sorting that out, how I feel about it based on life vigor and versus competition versus whatever. But yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
No one's all one thing. This doesn't change my perception of you as a human being.
Nope.
I just judge one facet of you as a human
Lance
being.
Armstrong broke my heart, and Lance Armstrong is scum on earth. I idolized him, and now I despise him.
That seemed to be the common takeaway, wasn't it?
That Oprah Winfrey interview. Oh, all right. We got to go. Lance, you broke my heart, Lance.
Till next time.